I assume you're here because you realize that ageism really impacts the life of each and every one of us. Here, I'm going to try to talk about some of the challenges that we're facing to battle ageism, as well as opportunities and tools that we already have in order to hopefully change the way we all think, feel, and act towards our own aging, as well as everyone else's aging process, in order to eventually live in a world for all ages. A major challenge that we all face concerns the fact that in many countries, we really don't have a term to describe ageism. And if we don't have a term, there is really nothing we can do about that. I would say that even myself here in Israel, it took me a couple of years to realize what the term ageism in Hebrew was. And only then did I start talking about ageism with my students. When the term is not used in your everyday life, it's non-existent. It really makes no difference in your life. You cannot conceptualize it. You cannot fight it. You cannot do anything. Another major challenge that we're facing with regard to ageism is the fact that there are no good enough scales of good psychometric properties to actually assess this very amorphous construct, this very complex construct called ageism. And if we cannot assess a construct, we really cannot fight it because we don't know how good we're doing. So we really have to identify a good scale to assess ageism. Related to that, a recent study has looked at the way perceived age discrimination is with regard to depressive symptoms. I think our common sense would say that we first experience perceived age discrimination, and this brings about depressive symptoms. Nonetheless, an alternative explanation is also plausible. It is possible that we feel really depressed and down, and we see the entire world in a very negative way, and this makes us interpret things in our life as age discrimination. What I found based on this study was that it's actually depressive symptoms that lead to perceived age discrimination and not the other way around. And this study is based on the Health and Retirement Survey. That is a very large study, representative study of individuals in the US. So basically, most of our research has asked people to report whether or not they have experienced age discrimination. Most of our research concerns perceived age discrimination, but this study really shows that it's unclear what it is we are assessing here, because it could be that it's depressive symptoms that leads to perceived age discrimination and not the other way around. In most studies, we don't use objective age discrimination measures. We rely on people's report that can be heavily associated or heavily affected by the person's emotional state. Another challenge concerns the fact that we have no agreed upon macro-level indicators of age inequality. There's the active aging index, the age watch index, but these indices really talk about the state of people in society. We try to attempt and use and develop a relative age inequality index that really looks at the status of old versus young people in society. Such an index has many disadvantages, actually, because it puts young versus old, which is a problem, and it could actually increase and lead to ageism. Moreover, it's unclear how to divide it. What constitutes young? What constitutes old? On the other hand, it does have the advantage of potentially directing public policy to the state of old versus young in society. I do think we need a relative age inequality index in order to direct countries so that each country knows where it stands with regard to the status of old versus young in society. But we're not there yet. I would say that in comparison to the gender inequality index, we have a long, long way to go before we can develop a really good index that tells us what the status of old people is in society and how much inequality they experience. Another major challenge concerns the fact that ageism really affects both old and young in society. Many times when it affects young people, it is called adultism or youthism. It's the power of the old generation over the younger generations. Nonetheless, most of the time when we're talking about ageism, it's gerontologists and human rights activists in the field of old age who are doing that. And the youth is left behind. Unless we gather forces and bring young and old together, both at the public level and also at the research level, we're not going to be able to change the discourse. I think this poem over here really demonstrates very well the interconnection between young and old in society and how both young and old people are affected by the same type of discrimination called ageism, and why young and old people in society should walk hand in hand to fight ageism. Another major challenge that we're facing concerns the fact that it's really not enough to raise awareness. Awareness actually might lead to backlash if we don't do it right. And here on the left side, you see an Israeli campaign that simply said, "Do not throw me away in old age." And this campaign really tried to target elder abuse. The same on the right side is being shown from a Finnish example. I think that neither examples is good, actually, because both of them put old people in a very vulnerable position and again associate old age with a burden, old age with a disability, old age with a problem. And I don't think that's the message that we want to create. Awareness is not enough. We really have to do something else. And we do know from a recent systematic review that both education and intergenerational contact are quite helpful and quite effective in targeting ageism. We also know that age should be looked at as a number. There is a lot of heterogeneity in old age, actually more so than in any other age period in our life. We really have to acknowledge this high heterogeneity in old age, and age should not be used as a criterion to allocate rights, responsibilities, or services to people. We all have to realize that the way we talk about old age makes a difference. And if we talk about the dependency burden, if we talk about the dependency ratio, if we talk about age as a burden, if we talk about premature death, all of these examples really show how the way we talk makes a difference. And we should learn to really change that and to move into a less ageist language over time and eventually a non-ageist language, hopefully. It's also important to remember that laws and regulations should explicitly prohibit age discrimination. Right now, this is not the case. We know that there are many explicit rules and regulations that prohibit old people from achieving their right to work, to rent a car in certain countries, to receive medical services, and so on and so on. So there are many examples that show that old people's rights diminish with age, and we really have to fight that. We have to change, and this is not easy because we have internalized the concept of old age as a challenge and a burden, but we really have to change the way we think about old age and start thinking of old age as an opportunity. More time really allows us for a first, second, third chance in life to repair relationships and lost opportunities, to come to terms with things that we've done, with things we have not done. Old age allows people to have more money sometimes, definitely more time, wisdom, experience, opportunity to establish relationship with children and grandchildren. I love this poem because it really talks about that. It talks about how at some point in our life, we really don't give a damn about what other people are saying about us. And we can really be us and do what we want. And this poem actually has inspired generations of women who are wearing purple with a red hat and go out to celebrate old age that allows them finally to be who they want to be. Aging can be an opportunity also at the societal level. We know that old age could stay employed and productive for a very, very long time if we just allow them to. But even if they're not, we know that old age brings with it wisdom, experience, tradition, and continuity that we really need in society. It allows for the exchange of quantified and non-quantified resources, such as babysitting, for instance. And it allows for the opportunity to exchange intergenerational solidarity, not only from the old to the young, but also from the young to the old. I hope I convinced you that it's really time for us to do something about that. In 2016, the WHO has started a new campaign to combat ageism in order for all of us to live in a world for all ages, where age is not a burden, where age is not a disability, where age does not impair our rights or services or our life, does not limit us. In order to get there, we really have to change the way we think, feel, and act towards age and aging, our own age and aging, as well as other people around us. We're still a long way to go. In the feminist revolution in the 60s, women burnt their bras. I don't know what it is that we are going to burn in order to make a societal change. But I do think we have to burn something. We have to gather forces, young and old, in order to fight ageism in society, in order for us to really live in a world for all ages. Thank you very much.